Hey, good afternoon. This is Frank Simon with the rest of the news. We've got some real excitement for you. I was outside in my yard a couple of days ago, and my wife had planted irises, and one of the irises was blown over and was on the ground and withered, and I cut it and put it in a vase with water, and the whole thing perked up. And that made me think of what happens when we get in with the Holy Spirit of God and get, in God's movement. It perks us up and takes away the wither. I was on Star Parker's website a couple of days ago, and she said that some people believe that their future lies with the work and money that other people are making. What do you think of that? Hopefully Rick Howland will be on the programs soon. Oh, Rick, are you there now?
Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Oh, did you hear what I said? I said that I was listening. I visited Star Parker's website. And
that makes sense to me. There are a lot of people, in fact, there are whole cultures that have existed over the centuries, where it was based upon like in the Caribbean, there were areas of the Caribbean that were operated and controlled by pirates.
Yeah,
and they believed that they believed they had an honorable profession of going and creating a living off other people's things, other people's labor.
Yeah.
So it's not really new, but in the context she's talking about, when you raise a generation to believe that they're entitled to certain things, you create that kind of attitude in people that they have a right to live off of other people's work.
Right.
If you have free this and free that, and you go down to the government, and the government provides it, and then the government raises the taxes of your neighbor, and you see that happen all your life for a couple of generations, that's just what it's supposed to be.
There was a lady once that said, socialism works great until you run out of other people's money.
Exactly. Margaret Thatcher.
Thatcher, that's it. Margaret Thatcher.
Yes, sir.
And
that's absolutely right.
So they think if they could just get the right people in public office, that they would be able to get other people's money, and that would make us a perfect world.
Right. That would solve all the world's problems. Is we get control of people who make enough money to live off of. We get control of their money, so they're just as poor as everybody else.
Right.
And that would solve the world's problems. They see the discrepancy between what people earn as being the source of all the problems in the world. If everybody had everything equal, then nobody would have any reason to be covetous or envious or jealous of other people. But that's not the way it works.
There's an old song that says, I'm free from the guilt. I'm free from the fear of tomorrow. I'm free from the guilt of the past. I'm free from the dull, empty life. And it seems to me that life doesn't have a whole lot of meaning if you're just trying to live off of somebody else.
It really doesn't. I think when we look at the Bible, where it said after the fall, when Adam sinned, he said, man will live by the sweat of his brow.
Yeah.
We look upon that, we read that as though that's a curse.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a curse. I think God was just reiterating to Adam, you're still gonna sweat, because remember, Adam was working every day in the garden.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
He was earning his living by the sweat of his brow before the fall.
Uh-huh.
He was running the garden. He was raising things, creating things. He was doing stuff, I think God was letting him know, you still gonna make it, you still gonna be able to earn your living.
You're still going to have to work.
And it's going to be by the sweat of your brow, just like it always has been. I don't think that was a curse. But we have a tendency as human beings to look upon we see that, and we think that because the subject of the conversation was Adam's disobedience, that was part of his punishment.
Right.
I don't think so. We're built to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't feel good if we don't work. I've had periods in my life where well, you know, until recently, I've been injured for a long time, and I haven't been working, you know, physical labor or any kind of labor, and it didn't make me feel good.
Yeah.
You know, and now that I've got a little piece of job, I feel like, you know, I feel like a man again, Doc, and that's not a
Praise
punishment.
the Lord. Yeah.
That's not a punishment. That's a blessing.
I was thinking that really we're in kind of a cultural war. There's a lot of problems that are really going on because we've gotten away from God. Like last year, there over 100 people were murdered in Louisville.
118, I think.
Yeah, because we got away from God. Those are casualties of the cultural war. There are 3,000 to 4,000 abortions in Kentucky every year, or in that last year that they have data. You know, most of them were right down here at 2nd and Market.
Right.
But those are casualties of the cultural war. Is that right? I saw that the Guttmacher organization says there's been over 1 million babies aborted in the United States every year.
Yeah.
The other thing is there were 255 drug overdoses that resulted in death in Jefferson County in 2015. So these are all results of the cultural war.
Yes, sir.
Some people might say, "Oh, I don't see any war going on." Well, you have to kind of look, but there's really a cultural.
You have to look for it.
Yeah, you have to look for it.
It's all around us, and we're used to it. We're used to hearing about junkies, you know, dying of a heroin overdose. You know? We're so used to it, and we think that because we're not involved in heroin, I don't have to use anything. They don't have to either.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is we have given up so much of the culture war.
Yeah.
That we have young
Rick,
men and women growing up not seeing any reason not to use drugs.
Yeah. We're running out of time. We're going to have to stop for a break. Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane, near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088. We can see you tomorrow. Rick, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yesterday was one of the best days in my entire life. We got a call from a gentleman who wants actually 4 copies of our programs for the public schools, which would counter some of this cultural war that we're going into. So that we were talking about. So he called and says, "Oh, what's going on?" And I told him, and he said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Send me 4 copies." He's going to put one in his school, one in another school, one in his church, and a 4th one to put wherever he can find a place. So after almost a month of searching, we're finally breaking into the schools because of Senate Bill 17. A tremendous breakthrough. I'm really excited about it. We got another guy who said he will take it on in Jefferson County. So it's a lot going on that will help counter the cultural war.
That's going to be a great opportunity. I wish we could also develop, like from wall builders.
Yeah.
Some kind of program that could be used to teach about the Black founding fathers. Clark Standard was here. Remember, he was coming on Pastor Stevenson's show and your show, and he was teaching people about the fact that a lot of people think that African Americans, all we did was stand around.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we were deeply involved in the fight during the Revolutionary War, and that was at a time when there was very little indication that if when the war was won, if we won it, a lot would change for us. Not for everybody, it would change for some that might have been free already, but it wasn't going to change much for most African Americans.
Yeah.
And they fought for it anyway. Everybody thinks of Paul Revere as riding "The British are coming, the British are coming." He was one of a series of riders that did that. And when the British were coming, they went out in different directions. One of them was a young girl, about 19 or 20 years old, who took off and rode through the night, talking about the British were coming. And there was also there was an African American gentleman whose name I can't remember, but he was a freedman. And at some point, I think it was in Massachusetts or Maine, he literally was a judge.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing a picture of Washington crossing the Delaware in a boat.
Yeah,
and there were a couple of black men in the boat with him.
Yeah, one of his officers was a black guy, and he didn't get to be officer because of his complexion. He got to be officer. He didn't get to be officer because he was a slave. It's because this dude know what he's doing. Everybody looks at that picture. I remember in Wall Builders, they said everyone looks at the picture and assumes that his second in command is a white gentleman that's close to him, and his second in command was a black guy.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot about our history that it really stands as a wall between our races in the country because, that most people have no idea that we were integrally involved in everything that has ever occurred here. One of the things that makes our young people so susceptible to some of the negative stuff they light into now is because they don't know anything about their heritage. Maybe we could put together a course like that could be, because in Christian basic,
Yeah.
but it's something that the public school system will never.
David Barton made a DVD called American History in Black and White. I think you've seen that, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and I'd like, maybe that might be something else you can put on the list to be entered in because, Wall Builders, David Barton, this is what I was talking about, David Barton, they've done a great deal of scholarship. That stuff doesn't need to be lost again. And in fact, maybe if we could get somebody to financially support them to dig even deeper, because there's a lot of stuff.
We do have a course on American history from David Barton that we're trying to get into the schools too. I haven't read it over, so I'm not really sure what's in there. I know George Washington's in there when they tried to kill him and got holes in his coat, but weren't able to kill him.
Right.
So that's all important. People are dying all around us because we've gotten away from God, and we need to put God back in our schools and be involved in what's going on. We need to be like a postage stamp, stick to one thing until you get there. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he also said, silence in the face of evil is itself evil. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act.
Right.
So that's what we need to do. America has a lot of problems, and we all are needed on the conflict that's going on and try to turn our country back to God.
Right. Back in the early days of the pro-life movement, back in the 80s.
Yeah.
90s, people, there was, you remember Sir Francis Schaeffer?
Yeah.
But Sir Francis Schaeffer was a philosopher, and he was a modern-day guy. And he used to, in the early days of the pro-life movement, he was one of the driving forces.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he used to talk about Bonhoeffer a lot.
Oh, really? He's a tremendous...
Bonhoeffer died toward the end of World War II. He eventually got caught by the Nazis.
Yeah.
But he led a resistance against the Nazis probably for a couple of 3 years. And he was a relatively young man. There was a young group of people he put together, And they
Yeah.
were putting out pamphlets and everything, and he was a thorn in the side of Hitler, and Hitler had to lock him up and kill some of them. They didn't kill him until it looked like they, as I understand it, until it looked like they were getting ready to lose, so they killed him while they still had a chance.
Here's
But
another quote from.
he was a young guy. He started an organization called the White Rose Society in Germany.
Wow. Here's
in the midst
another.
of the Nazi, in the midst of the Nazi mess.
Here's another quote from Bonhoeffer. It says, political action means taking on responsibility. Yeah. This cannot happen without power, and power is to serve responsibility. God bless you. We'll be right back. We've been trying to talk about the cultural war and how people are actually dying all around us. They've lost the meaning of life, and they don't seem to have a purpose. And really, it's like putting the flour into water. It perks it up and gives us some excitement about what God is doing all the time. Here's a song. It says, I've got a river of life flowing out of me, makes the lame to walk and the blind to see, opens prison doors and sets the captives free.
Amen.
Free from the dull, empty life. Hallelujah.
The dull, empty life. I've never heard that one before.
That's in some of these lyrics. It says, I'm free from the fear of tomorrow. I'm free from the guilt of the past. And I'm free from the dull, empty life. It's so long I had searched for life's meaning, enslaved by the world and its greed. Then the door of the prison swung open, and for the ransom was paid, I was free. God is really helping us with these programs to get God back in the public schools. There are a lot of pain and suffering because we've taken the meaning and purpose out of life, like, saying, oh, well, everything happened by accident. The world is here by accident. There was a big bang, and then everything showed up over millions and millions of years. Kind of takes the meaning out of life.
Yeah. It makes it sterile and of no real worth or consequence.
Easter, we just passed Easter, and the empty tomb is one of the most documented facts of history. The empty tomb means that things like Jesus said, I can do all things. No, Paul said, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. But when you see the empty tomb and the resurrection, there is power in the Word of God, and that we can do all things. The devil couldn't keep Jesus in the tomb, even though he wanted to.
That's right.
I was reading Walter Williams had a commentary on Earth Day. He said, every year Earth Day is accompanied by predictions of doom. In 1970, the environmentalists predicted that civilization would end within 30 years, by the year 2000.
Yeah, right.
So, that's about the way their predictions end up. A Harvard professor, he says, civilization is going to be gone in 30 years. Their predictions are not doing too well. Yeah, they used to call it global warming. Now they say, oh, no, it's just climate change. Either way, it could go hotter or colder, and it's all our fault because of people at work. It's an article that I found recently. It says Muslims dominate the United Nations. That's why they're against Israel, and there's a lot of problems with the United Nations because the Muslims have such a big percentage of the United Nations. Of course, they're still making slaves. So slavery is not passed as far as the Muslims are concerned. Is that right, Rick?
That's exactly right. The slave trade has actually existed because of the Islamic faith. That's one of the things they do when they conquer a land. When they take over people, they put people into slavery. And especially on the continent of Africa, it has never stopped. And we've got a media that I think, intentionally tries to give the impression that the only place on earth slavery ever existed was in America. They talk about human trafficking.
Yeah.
And all that is slavery.
Yeah.
They're stealing people and taking them and putting it and selling them into slavery in other countries.
Still going on today. I can't get over, the left-wingers.
Human trafficking.
Yeah. The left-wingers are saying, oh, America is so bad and they had slaves, but really the Muslims still got slaves and they're still enslaving more people. Still a major problem because of the Muslim population trying to enslave more people.
Yeah, and that's not to say everybody that's a Muslim sees it that way.
No,
but the entire history of especially of the radical sects of Islam, the Sunnis and the Shias, and the way they operate in the Middle East and in Indonesia and in other countries, that's the way they operate. Moderates that are here in America are really the ones that are not operating according to the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
The ones who operate according to the Quran are the ones that are the most dangerous. Moderate Muslims here, they're striving real hard to just stay out of trouble, And they go to the military, they fight in the military, they're on our police departments, they enforce law that doesn't take away from that large percentage of 1.8 billion people who believe that they need to control and enslave the rest of the earth. Right. That's what jihad's all about.
Yeah, and they're still active at it, so it's a real problem. And
yes, sir.
The other thing is a lot of them will lie, like the Muslim Brotherhood say, "Oh, we're moderate," and yet they behind the scenes they're trying to push the caliphate.
It's not a sin to lie to infidels.
Yeah, they said that there was a guy in that was questioning the global warming, and all of a sudden they had somebody shooting at the windows right next to his office were shot out, and no one was hurt, but this was in University of Alabama in Huntsville.
There's a fascistic element among the left now and they're becoming real bold about it. On Berkeley's campus in California, it used to be known as the bastion for First Amendment rights, freedom of speech.
Yeah, yeah.
And they claim they still are. It's just that they don't want you to speak unless they agree with you. There have been a couple of speakers that went there, and literally there were riots, and people were injured.
Yeah, yeah.
They were attacking people and injuring them. They believe they have the right to do violence if they disagree with what you say.
Right. And freedom of speech has gone out the window. It's just it's
gone out the window. I'm sitting on it. It ain't as big as heavy as I am. It ain't gone out the window yet. We need to stand up and not back down and forcefully step forward and use our freedom of speech. The churches for too long has sat back piously, trying to avoid arguments and trying to avoid being unpleasant. And now we are being confronted with nothing but unpleasantness.
Right.
And they're willing to do violence to us because they disagree with us.
That's right. So that's exactly right. Now here's a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. It says, being a Christian is less about cautiously avoiding sin than about courageously and actively doing God's will. We need to not be silent, like you were just saying. We need to face evil and speak out. The Bible says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. We should be reproving the unfruitful works of darkness. That's what God said about it. We need to speak out. Here's another one that says, political action means taking on responsibility. We need to speak out against some of the outrageous things that are happening. They just want their liberal mumbo jumbo and nothing that disagrees with their point of view. I want to ask our audience to call us if they know somebody that can help us start these Christian programs in the public schools. Rick, we're all we'll have to take a break. We'll be right back. If you know somebody, a student, a strong Christian student that could help us start one of these American history courses or creation science courses, now that Senate Bill 17 has passed, we would like to get these started in the public schools. So give us a call. Probably the best number would be 893-2444. And we would follow up and contact those people and see if we can get them to join the others that are now starting these courses really all over the state of Kentucky because of Senate Bill 17 that put prayer back in Kentucky schools. It's really important. We got those calls yesterday from people out in the state that want to get these courses started in their schools. We're getting more and more calls. Louisville is kind of falling back a little bit. We need more people in Louisville that would pick up the ball and run with it here in the Jefferson County schools.
Well, Louisville's kind of a go-along to get-along place. It's the most liberal part of the state of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, so there are a lot of people here that say, well, I'm a Christian, but, the right to have prayer in school, now who's going to run that prayer? Well, whoever wants to pray, they get to pray their way,
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't preclude any one particular kind of prayer, and it doesn't prescribe.
Right.
Bring God into the marketplace of religious ideas.
Right, right.
Other religious groups are going to take advantage of this. They'll go on and have some kind of meetings and study groups and stuff.
Yeah.
So we might as well make sure that we do too.
It's a real eye-opener of a DVD, and it kind of tells you why we have such a big problem.
On college campuses, exactly.
Right.
I remember having, when my kids were young, and I was insisting that, my kids be held to a standard. They would mark problems done incorrectly because they worked the process. They made a mistake, so they ended up with the wrong answer. And I was saying, in order to get the idea is for my child to get the right answer 100% of the time. The idea is for him to learn the process, and
okay, Rick,
that's the important thing. Whether the answer's right or
we're
not,
out
I
of
just want to
time.
make sure you know the process.
Okay, God bless you, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.